news as well from the world of football in the sense of the retirement of Cesc Fabregas.
Yes.
What a story he's been when you think about his career, becoming the youngest Arsenal player, making his first appearance for the club so many years ago now, isn't it? Played for Arsenal, Barcelona, Chelsea, Monaco, most recently at Como. He's going to go into coaching at Como as well. That's his next step. But a wonderful career.
Oh, absolutely. And not the biggest, not the quickest, superb technically, always could see a pass, feisty. He's known to put his foot in, says Fabregas.
Is he?
He didn't shirk. Oh, well, within the game, yeah. I mean, I remember talking to Teddy Sheringham one day, who played against him right at the end of his career when Cesc was at the start of his, and Cesc was giving him a few words and was sledging him on the pitch about telling him to retire.
Oh, really? I wonder how old Cesc would have been at that point.
I think he was about 17, 18. This is really ridiculous. But he was quite known for being feisty and getting stuck in, didn't shirk a challenge.
Because, I mean, you say that, but you look at him, especially off the pitch, and he looks quite sort of shy and unassuming in a way. So that quite surprises me that he had that sort of edge to him.
Yeah, he did. And, it was a positive, you know. There's a number of players who put themselves around, put themselves about on a football pitch and don't take any prisoners when they're playing. And Cesc was that. He was fabulously gifted. You know, you don't play for Barcelona, Monaco, Chelsea, Arsenal, these clubs, and, play as well as he did. He was a player that always wanted the ball. He could create assists and he could certainly score goals. I think they've shown highlights, haven't they? One of the great assists he made where he sort of, in his early days at joining Arsenal, a great little through ball. And, he was a fabulous footballer. I mean, look at his CV, Euros with Spain, winning the Euros, World Cup. Title, Premier League. Didn't win the Champions League, but he's had a great career.
Absolutely. He really has. 12 major trophies he has won in his time. And as I was saying, he was the youngest debutant for Arsenal when he was aged 16 years and 177 days.
16, wow.
I know. And then became their youngest goal scorer when he scored in one of the rounds of the League Cup in that same season. Unfortunately for him, he was involved in Arsenal during that invincible era, but didn't play a single game in the Premier League, so didn't pick up a winner's medal that time around, but made up for it when he went to Chelsea, winning the Premier League title twice as well. But he was just one of those players that, or do you think, Cass, he was one of those players that everyone looked upon and thought, oh, if only we could have had him in our team. And I'm talking even on an international stage, for what he could do on the pitch.
He was very respected because any player that can, it's not. The game was going with physical presence and obviously players getting slightly bigger. You look at midfield now. You look at Jude Bellingham, 6'2", 6'3", and there's been Declan Rice is a big midfielder. You look across the board; they generally have been grown in size, and Cesc would hold his own in the midfields and not be the biggest. Yeah. But always, it was a little bit like Dennis Wise. I know they've ended up together at Como at the club, but Dennis was like that. Dennis was not the biggest, but never shirked anything. And then you sort of think of them two together. Yeah. And you're right, when you hear him speak after games or when he's commentating or, being a guest and talking about the game that he's watching, and you sort of feel like, well, he's a pundit that's quite calm and he reflects well. He wasn't like that on the pitch, but there's many players. I mean, I remember playing against David Batty when he was at Leeds and Blackburn. I remember playing against him. Wow. He was a pit bull, out on the pitch. Wasn't the biggest, didn't mix it. I mean, you hear nothing of David Batty now, but there were them type of midfielders. And you hit him, he was like a wall, David Batty, and could look after himself. And Cesc wasn't even as big and strong as David Batty, but he really knew how to, especially as a kid, he knew how to get himself around in a football pitch and look after himself.
And just knew how to sort of hold his own, really. And maybe that is down to the competitiveness of football, that you have to have a little bit of an edge, I guess,
especially
to come
in midfield.
Through.
Yeah. A lot of feisty, Paul Ince feisty, Roy Keane feisty, Graeme Souness, you hear people, Martin O'Neill, making comments about how, naughty he was as a player and how dirty he was. And then you had someone like Jimmy Case, who was, for me, clearly the hardest midfielder Liverpool ever had. He looked after, Jimmy Case was no nonsense, but didn't, wouldn't verbal too much. He would just go out and play with toughness to his game. And Cesc had a bit of that in him. Not to that level, but he could look after himself.
Do you think we have anyone like that now?
I think it's tougher to have players that, can... The laws of the game are so tight, and, with VAR now, it's really difficult because you can leave your foot in. The game is way different. You could get away with way more years gone by. But there are players who can still look after themselves, but... I think Xhaka at Arsenal's a little bit. He could, but then he gets yellow carded quite often, doesn't he?